a rare thing in 1982, and I had actually seen somebody filming the 1982 event, and things weren't so well organised in those days. As you can see, this is just a general mishmash of models. These are all the early versions of Hawks and things. This is the in this picture. There's some of our celebrities. This is a Thorpe's model, another Thorpe model. In fact, the prototype of my Mirage, David James's early F86 Saber. I think this model was Larry Wolf's, but I'm not certain. Another Thorpe Phantom. Marcus Norman, late Marcus Norman's Panther. A beautiful Super Etendard, and one for Mark Frankel here. This is Marcus Norman's twin Javelin, just gone out of picture. This is the Dassault Oregon of Marcus Norman. This model is still flying. As you may be aware, poor Marcus died last year in a full-size air accident. This model really has taken a beating. It's been through several people's hands and still flies. It flies very, very well indeed. Marcus Norman was a prolific builder and flyer in those days, and this is his Panther taking off. This is also available as a plan. In those days, the only real engine that we had in the UK, the early versions of the KMB 7.5 were coming in, but Marcus powered most of his models, including his Javelin, with Super Tigers. Early ones were Pylon 40 engines, in this case the 45s.
That's right.
This landing is what I call extracting the maximum use out of ground effect.
Oh God.
This is Alan King's Phantom, built from the Thorpe plans. It has a Super Tiger 45 and an AxiFlow fan. Very, very spirited flyer considering it's 1982. This is Ken Stokes. I think it's a Lavochkin Russian fighter, first generation fighter. Ken originally powered this with a KMB 40 and a homemade fan. This is the Thorpe Phantom landing. This model, for its age, was an absolutely superb flyer, and the principal, I think it only weighed about £5. Ken actually slotted a KMB 40 directly into the ducting, no flow straighteners and a homemade fan. And when he wound this up, it really did fly. I had the pleasure of flying with Ken a few years later, in fact last year at Woodvale on a demonstration flight. A typical Ken Stokes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday landing. This is Marcus Norman with his Javelin. In those days, a twin-engine fighter. or twin engine ducted fan model was a rarity. This one actually attracted national press attention, and as you'll see, marginal on takeoff thrust, but once in the air, a very, very good flyer. Marcus was a very, very brave guy to fly this at this event because it hadn't been fully sorted at the time. His first flight he lost the aircraft with crossed ailerons. As you can see, it happens to the best of us.
Something with it though. One's cut. Both cut. No, one's
Model was powered by two of his own design fans, later to become the pattern for the micromold fans, now so popular in the UK. The model was powered by, as I say, two Super Tiger ST45s. This is Ted Cook, one of the characters of ducted fan flying. I think this is an American kit. Very unimpressive in the air, as you can see. Ted has some dealings with America, and he's quite often over there, and he's always paying Larry Wolf a visit.
Oh dear.
My heroes, the Thorpe brothers and their young son, now a grown-up teenager. This is the prototype of the F1 Mirage, the same model that I built mine from the plans. In this case, K&B powered with a turbines. Once again, a dolly takeoff. You'll see even in those days that this aircraft is a fine performer. The thing about the Thorpes is that they, with one exception to my knowledge, they seem to squeeze the maximum performance out of all of their models.
This is what Alan wants to make.
Coming up shortly is one of the many versions of the Hawk. In this case it's the Thorpe brothers flying a converted propeller design model. This is marketed by Leicester Model Centre, a company in the UK, and this is the aircraft. They've actually lengthened the nose now to improve the scale. This one is powered by a KMB 45, once again taken off from a dolly. This really is a fine flyer. This is David James with the prototype of his kit of his F86 Saber. This model sells in the UK at about £85, which represents reasonably good value when you compare it with the American models. David adopts what is quite common in the UK, namely a belt start. Quite easy on 45 size engines, and not as daunting a task as it at first appears.
Dave. Go and squish it. Oh, yes, this fucking thing.
This is Paul Gray's plan version of the Hawk, a really excellent flyer. This model, with no undercarriage as you can see there, can quite easily be built at 7 pounds in weight. This other model is Peter Nye's prototype of the kit that I now have. Back back on the dolly after a successful flight from David James. This is the second flight of the Mirage. You'll notice in this flight either we've got an extremely stable model or a very strong wind. It's never ever dead calm at Abingdon. I would suggest that we have a combination of both, because if you watch the landing carefully, you'll see what has now become a typical landing of the Thorpe brothers. They almost stop them in the air and let them drop the last couple of feet. Sure, but I think this is actually Larry Wolff. You don't get a good enough view of him to really recognise him. Perhaps you may know better than me, but this aircraft made many unsuccessful attempts at flight covered by this footage. I won't comment on any of them, they're self-explanatory.
Again.
This is once again the Paul Greyhawk. In these days Paul was using a homemade fan and had actually taken up the development of the Marcus Norman fan later to become the micromold unit. Now, considering this stage Paul was using a Super Tiger 45 and probably getting no more than 19,000 RPM, the performance of the model is very creditable. Once again another attempted takeoff from the Kafir.
We'll have another go now, don't lock on? It's in an effort to get it to breathe more air, I think. Duck. No.
The following coverage of Abingdon 83 unfortunately has absolutely no sound whatsoever, so I will attempt to do a commentary all the way through. One of the biggest problems with this event, and sadly involved the coverage of the
Jackman turbojet, and the nicest part of the turbojet, namely the sound, is in fact missing.
This is a model built by Alan Brown. There are several versions of this Saber appeared at Abingdon since its first appearance. It's a very, very good flyer. Fiberglass fuselage, foam wings, K&B 7.5. The first 2 years I saw it, in 1983 and 84, it flew prolifically 6-7 times at each event. I think it's inherited the landing characteristics of the early non-flap versions of the real F100, because at best, to quote Art Johnson, the landings were controlled crashes. This is a personal favourite of mine. I'd dearly like to get my hands on one of these moulds. It really does, in my eyes, fly very well. It's got a very good presence in the air. It's very realistic, and it's got a fair old turn of speed. I'd like to see one of these with a more powerful fan in, because even with the K&B and the early K&B at that, it is an exceptionally good flyer. Alan hasn't appeared at Abingdon now for several years, although one of his disciples did make 2 appearances last year and this year with an all silver version of the same model. Met its eventual demise, as I reported in one of the articles, when he stalled it well short of the runway. I think of all the landings of this model, I've only ever seen one reasonably smooth one on that. It takes a lot of credit away from the pilots. This is Graham Dennett's perennial Skyray. Graham's another master lander. He usually does one-wheel landings the first time, then 2, then 3. This model has been subjected to some incredibly fast approaches. This is another model that I really have never actually seen land smoothly. Whether this is a function of the model or not, I don't know. Graham's a good builder, very innovative in his approach and his designs. None of them seem to land very well. This is K&B and Turbax powered. Now this is once again my pals, the Thorpe brothers, in action. This is a whole host of kits of theirs. This is one of their Phantoms. I'm not sure who flew it on this occasion. It's built from their plan. This model comes out about £8.5. Very, very good flyer. The red Delta you saw previously is their first design. It's called the Delta Scepter and was developed from some propeller-powered aircraft designs by Pete Russell, a celebrity in our UK fan columnists. There's one of Graham's typical approaches. I think that was probably the best landing I've ever seen Graham do.
Un sujet à creuser, des pistes de réflexion. Ceci n'a pas été un récit-reportage sur l'engagement collectif de nos amis d'Afrique pour la cause de la paix. 7 points et demi. Monsieur Robert...
This is the Thorpe brothers' early version of the Harrier. This is for conventional flight only. It has obviously enlarged double outlet ducts on either side. Not want to be caught napping, the Thorpes are prolific in their designs, and at this stage already had about 6 or 7 proven and tested models to their credit. Later on in this film you'll see what I consider to be one of their best, and it only really appeared once, and that was a Superette en Dard. This is the early version of the Fanjets Hawk, the scale version. This is John Carpenter, who subsequently designed the Follen Gnat. John made the fatal error with this model of stalling it, as you'll see later on. He made it even worse by actually stalling it overhead. This is K&B Turbax powered. Weight about 9.5 pounds. This model is fitted with a cheat or auxiliary intake underneath. Slightly overscale exhaust outlet. This is the Thorpe's Harrier, still doing the rounds.
Cette découverte a eu lieu grâce aux lectrices soviétiques, donnant des cours de russe dans les lycées. C'est grâce à elles et à leur récit que j'ai découvert l'histoire de l'URSS, ses richesses. J'ai notamment découvert la vie des lycéens, le déroulement de leurs études.
Not a particularly pretty model in the air, but as with all Thorpe models, good flyers. Also later on in this footage you'll see the prototype version of their F-18 Hornet. The model, although not shown flying particularly well in this sequence, basically was underpowered. It came out in excess of 10.5 pounds, and they tried to fly it with a K&B 7.5 and a Turbax. When they, in the next year's event, powered it by a Boss and a Rossi 65, the model was totally transformed. Albeit lighter versions of the same plan have been built with OS 46 and K&Bs and flown very, very well.
Tout à fait extraordinaire. Celle de Madame Josette François de Bourges. Et elle présente son récit elle-même.
This is Ted Cook with his Byron MiG-15 with a Rossi, I think it's a Rossi 65. As I said, Ted has some US connections and was probably the first guy in the UK to bring across the American offerings on ducted fan flight. Quite a nice climb out, quite impressive. This is in the days when anything over a 45 size engine was something to behold. Very impressive model. Flew very well, as you can see. I think the only thing that really spoils the F-16 is its narrow track undercarriage, and you need exceptionally good stable wind conditions and some good piloting skills to effect a reasonably good landing. As you can see by the sky, Abingdon 83 was a very pleasant June. Weather was nice, temperature in the lower 70s, and a very pleasant breeze. I actually caught sunburn on this occasion. This is Pim Smith now taking off with his Jet Hangar Hobbies Mirage. This model still flies. I don't think it's missed an event since 1983. He always brings it along. Forgotten how many flights this has really had. This is a K&B Turbax combination. Pim is possibly the most reliable fan flyer in the UK. I don't think I've ever seen him turn in a bad flight or suffer from any of the normal ails of fan flying. This is a prototype Jaguar of unknown origin. This appeared this year, in 1983, and it appeared in 1984. On both occasions it suffered from the same problem. I can't make my mind up what's wrong there. It is probably a rearward CFG, but the model appeared the very next year and did exactly the same thing.